You're listening to Faith, Relationship, and Community Podcast, where we talk about all things faith, relationship, and community. My name is Noah. I'm the lead pastor of Morningside Lutheran Church. Today, I'm talking with Larry with Pure Desire to talk about some of the sexual brokenness in our community. Thanks for being here
Thank you.
and talking about all of this. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and why you're here.
Okay. Well, my name is Larry Hoing, and lifelong resident of Sioux City. Both my wife and I have lived here all of our lives, except for some military experience.
Yeah.
And
how long did you serve in the military?
4 years.
4 years.
4
Okay.
years in the Navy. And basically, we've lived here most of our life. Other than that, we've raised 3 kids. We've got 8 grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
I've been employed with a local employer for 39 years.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Kind of sticky.
Quite an accomplishment. You don't see that as much anymore.
Right.
It seems like anyway.
That's true.
But
That's true. Yeah. So we're just here today to try to talk a little bit about our recent past and some of the things that we're doing in the future here.
Yeah. So you're part of Pure Desire. And so first, I guess just set up what is Pure Desire, and then I'd like to hear how you got involved with that and your
Certainly.
experience with it.
Sure. Pure Desire Ministries is a ministry focused on helping people that have sexual brokenness.
Yeah.
Right. They're clinically based, but I should say biblically based and clinically informed.
Okay. Yeah.
So they use cutting edge clinical research to help people with their healing. A lot of times we say, well, just pray it away. Well, sometimes God wants us to work through it.
Sure.
Right. And there's a lot that can go into maybe a sexual addiction or things like that. So Pure Desire Ministries has developed with Dr. Ted Roberts and Diane Roberts since 2007, have utilized a lot of the Carnes research and then also biblical. So he took the clinical Carnes research and also tied it in with biblical principles.
Okay.
And created a curriculum, so to speak, for those that have got brokenness and sexual sin.
Because the Lord cares about that deeply.
Yes,
I mean, throughout Scripture, one of the main things that even in the epistles that the Apostle Paul will constantly share about in his language, sexual sin, and so it's important that I'm grateful for that process being done. And so there's also with Pure Desire, I guess talk a little bit about sexual, the class that you have.
Okay.
Sorry,
yeah.
So there's my mind.
Yeah, there's several
Sexual Integrity
101.
Yep.
Yes. There are several different offerings that Pure Desire has put together to help people see and bring out the right vocabulary.
Yeah.
Get the discussion in the open rather than behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Because behind closed doors is isolation, and isolation breeds the problem. So Sexual Integrity 101 is an 8-week class that is designed to help people see some of the facts around sexual addiction, sexual integrity, talk about the brain science and what God has to say about our sexual being. And, God designed us to delight with our spouse.
Yes.
A sexual relationship. But when that goes south, right, there's healing that needs to happen there. So Pure Desire Ministries has developed that to help people see that. And then also for people like myself, I went through what's called 7 Pillars of Freedom. It's a 10-month intensive. I did it online. It can be done in person online, but it's really 7 guys and a leader, and you go through a series, a book, basically several books, 2 hours a week with at least 2 to 3 hours of homework a week, where you really find out where that brokenness is coming from. You really connect to what God has to say. You really tap into prophetic promises for your life instead of the lies that you might be believing.
Yeah.
And so it's a 10-month session that, number one, brought healing to me. So it brought a series of healing to me. So when I finished that, I actually jumped into another one to co-lead.
Okay. Yep.
Right. And then again, after
walk alongside other men.
Other men. again continue my healing.
Sure. Yeah.
And then decided to run my own group this past year. And so had a 7 Pillars group that I ran online. And then just recently, we've started a Sexual Integrity 101 class.
Yep.
And here in 3 weeks, I believe, we're going to be starting in-person groups.
Yeah, that's great.
Right. So that'll be both for the 7 Pillars for people that have some brokenness. And then we also have Pure Desire offers what's called Betrayal and Beyond.
Okay.
So imagine my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So part of my story is after 37 years, my infidelity was found out.
Yeah.
I was a broken shell of a man with no idea of who that guy was.
You've been pretty open with your story. And so, I appreciate you. Just share that, kind of what you guys experienced.
Yeah. So I was found out actually coming out of an establishment, inebriated and penniless.
Yeah.
And my wife was sitting in the parking lot. So you can imagine, after 37 years, the shock and awe that she went through. And that's why they have Betrayal and Beyond, because there's healing that needs to happen from being betrayed. So we went through 2.5, almost 3 years of me not necessarily fully engaging, to be honest with you. My wife was hypervigilant and thought she was going crazy because she just didn't realize that her life was her life real because of all the lies I had. And so after about 2.5, 3 years, I got connected with Pure Desire through podcasts. And then that's where we started our healing. But I had a lifelong history of sexual infidelity that she didn't know about.
And then once she finds out, I mean, you guys, I'm sure in that moment, and I think it's good to talk through, because I know that many couples go through this and they might not know what to do and what some of those next steps are. So when the encounter, I'm sure that was an intense moment for the both of you. What were some of the next steps that you did, or some of the maybe next steps that you shouldn't have done or did? And so play that out a little bit.
I think I have more shouldn't have dones than should have dones.
We usually do.
Because number one, where do you go?
Yeah, right.
There is a ton of shame. So do you go to a friend that can you trust? Right. So that's part of the stigma here, is that you've got the sexual brokenness and you've broken your family. And who do you go to that you feel comfortable and safe with? Yeah. Right?
Because you're sharing, it's her story too now. And so it's opening up and making her vulnerable to that.
Exactly. So number one, to be vulnerable, you have to make a decision that you want to be healed.
Yeah.
And if you've been in that brokenness for a long time, I'll just tell you from experience, that's a difficult thing to get to, because you've coped. You've used this coping mechanism for so many years that you don't know what else to do. And so finding a safe place to find healing and even to talk to your wife about it.
Because I'm sure in some ways you're not sure. I mean, I'm an advocate of the therapeutic world and being able to have somebody. My wife and I have always said that my wife's a therapist, but we don't always know how to talk to each other about these things, but somebody else does. And so having somebody be able to help us navigate through a conversation like that and healing.
And we did do some therapy sessions together, which worked better for me than for her, because it was more about me at the time. But through the 7 Pillars group, I found that I did need more healing than what just the group could do. So we're huge advocates of the counseling world, of the therapeutic world. And I today go to a therapist that helps me see things a little bit differently.
That's what my wife is for. I always say, I talk to Emily sometime. I'm thinking, am I talking to my wife or my therapist? But yeah, absolutely. And so what, so as I just think about that, obviously 7 pillars. So when you get into a point where now you've kind of worked through some of that and you're talking with other men who have gone through this. How did that feel for you? Just knowing that maybe you weren't alone in this and there's some other stories and cases. Talk about that experience that I think can be helpful for one who might be internalizing everything and carrying all that weight.
Yeah, actually, the first night of my first 7 pillars, our co-leader told his story.
Okay.
Talk about breaking the ice.
Yeah.
The 7 guys that were so isolated, they didn't want anybody to know their story. And some of them hadn't told their wives yet.
Yeah.
So the freedom that was given through that was immense. So now imagine we just broke the ice with all of our co-leaders' sexual brokenness, opens up the doors because now he's a safe person. Sure. And that's part of the beauty of how 7 Pillars works with how Pure Desire put it together. It's not a clinician. It's not a pastor. It's not, it's somebody that's been through it.
Right.
I've been through the mud.
Yeah.
I know what it feels like. I know how I've betrayed somebody.
Yeah.
And I know the feelings in the darkness and the isolation. So that is a safe place for somebody to come and share their brokenness. And part of sharing that is therapeutic.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's also, when you can speak it, it becomes more alive and out in the open rather than in the darkness. Yeah. And so that's part of the deal, is bringing your brokenness into the light.
Yeah.
One of the things I do in my 7 pillars is I start with a candle lighting. I say, at our very first group, we're going to light this candle. We're going to dispel darkness in this group, right? And then I have all the guys light a candle. So, just as an idea of, we're going to dispel darkness and we're going to bring everything into the light. Yeah. And so it's a powerful thing for somebody to do. And there's this relief that guys will feel like, oh, okay.
Isn't it amazing that exposing and in the light, my mind goes to Matthew 5 as Jesus is teaching, let your light shine before men, and don't hide that light, but may God be glorified in that. And so in that moment, you're exposing everything and how freeing that really is. You just feel the weight of darkness and the beauty of the light.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's, that is the first pathway to healing, quite honestly, is to get rid of that baggage. Yeah. Or start to get rid of that. You don't get rid of it. In one session.
Right. Yep. Right.
Start to get rid of that baggage and to really expose it, and to, because that type of brokenness lives in the darkness. And so the continual, every week we ask several questions. We talk about many different things, but one of the questions is, have you lied to anybody? And we talk about any lie.
Sure.
Lie of omission to my boss, like I didn't do this. A lie to my wife about I did or did not take the garbage out. All of that adds up, because if we continue to lie, we're putting things in the darkness. Yeah. And so that's just one of the very many tools that we go through.
It's always you practice telling the truth, exposing the lie anyway. And
absolutely. And we do a faster scale. Where are we at now? Where's our health this week? Where are we at on the faster scale to kind of gauge? Hey, I'm speeding up. I'm having a hard time. I'm exhausted. I'm in anxiety, or I'm doing good. Yeah. What is that? So it's a authentic, real relationships are started to be built in a group like that. And quite honestly, for us men, we're John Wayne's. We can do this all ourselves. Sure,
absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
I can white knuckle it.
Yeah. But I'm determined. I got this. I'm able. I'm empowered. Yeah, I don't know.
No, we need the Calvary is what we need. We need the Calvary, and we need many of them. So teaching men that it's okay to reach out to another guy and say, I need some help.
That in my mind, when I think about that probably becomes one of the greatest barriers, because I know that even listening to this, there are men that are dealing with and thinking, I don't know if I can do this and expose. I think there's a deep innate desire to want to come out of this. But how do you break that barrier? How do you make that first step and just expose or be exposed?
Yeah. You have to want to. Yeah. And in my case, I got caught. And that's a lot of guys. Yep. Right. Wife picks up a phone and sees something. Right. However it is, But some guys decide, I've had enough of this. I can't continue to do this.
Yeah.
And so, the first step is really admitting that I can't do this myself. The Barna research just came out, and there's some statistics in there that say about 2/3 of Christians say that, it's okay. This sexual thing, this pornography or whatever it is, I can cope with that and be true to my sexual self.
Right.
Right. And then another section of them, and I think it's 60%, I can't remember exactly, but you can find the Barna research, talks about whether or not people can do it themselves.
Right.
And overwhelming number of people believe I can fix this myself.
Yep.
And that's just not the truth.
No.
It's just not the truth. Healing is found in community.
Right.
And community is what we need to be in with others.
We talked a couple of weeks ago, and I brought this up, but how, and maybe it's in some of the Barna research, I can imagine that when we're talking pornography, things that we see on the internet, it's not back in the day when you get a magazine or you're in a subscription for something, but you see it everywhere. Social media, I mean, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, you see it everywhere. And so I could imagine how much more prominent that is in our culture today, even our young men growing up and that just being normal and feeling like, I remember I was talking to a gentleman and, he said he doesn't look at pornography, but he looks at, pictures in social media. And I'm thinking that's what it is. Let's name it and call it what it is.
Exactly.
And so I guess what is pornography in that way? Are we onto something there that's what we're looking at?
Yeah, it is. I will just say most images on social media today are pornographic.
Yeah.
In nature. And, God created us in his image.
Yeah.
Both male and female. And so our bodies are not wrong. Our bodies are not bad.
They're beautiful.
They're beautiful.
Yeah.
And they are to be beheld.
Yes.
It's what you do with it. Right? So pornography is that opening door. And a lot of times if somebody's scantily dressed or you have you like a certain part or a certain hair color or whatever it is, you will be attracted to that. And that's natural.
Sure.
It's what you do with it.
Yeah.
Is it the second look?
Mm-hmm.
Is it now fantasy?
Yep.
Okay.
And that's being honest with yourself.
That's being honest.
To say, okay, what did
I do with it?
Yeah.
Am I beholding beauty or am I internalizing that and using that for something else?
Yeah.
And so I think the word pornography, everybody looks at that and says, okay, that's a dirty magazine. Right. That's a video, that's a whatever. But I honestly believe that any image that can be used for that can be pornography.
Yeah.
So really it starts here,
right,
in the heart.
Yeah.
Okay. And what we're after and what our intent is. But pornography is so much more prevalent today. The availability, right, is in our pocket.
Yep. Absolutely.
And it doesn't cost anything.
Access to everything.
So if we talk sexual addiction.
Yeah.
Sexual addiction in the brain is no different than addiction to cocaine.
Yeah.
The brain reacts the same way.
Yeah.
It's a flood of dopamine.
Yeah. Might have its moments of remorse, regret on the come down, but it comes back up.
It comes back up.
Yeah.
And the problem is I don't have to go spend $50 and be, picked up from whatever and notice that I'm a junkie.
Sure.
It's in my pocket and it's available. And kids 8, 9, 10, 11 years old today
scary
have cell phones.
That's my kid's age. Not a cell phone yet, but
we're my grandkids' age.
We're still in the no phone until you're 18.
Right.
No.
And so that accessibility and affordability, free, it's in your pocket.
Yep.
Right. And today, most people believe that it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. And it's not. It's very dangerous.
And that's the danger, I think, that I struggle with, the normalization of it. And to say, and especially, men have that stigma of like we're more sexually thinking and all of that. And physically, we notice the physical attributes more. But that doesn't mean we can normalize what we're looking at and what we're doing with that. I like how you put that.
Right. Exactly. I mean, honestly, 75% of men today
Yeah.
Shocking. 40% of women.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you look in the Barna research, and it's an exhaustive study.
Yeah.
And it's
They do a good job.
shocking to see just the growth over the past 10 or 12 years.
Right.
And how more prevalent it is, and how much more it becomes part of the mainstream, and it's okay. It's not a problem.
I remember when commercials on TV, I mean, they just, when I was a kid, there might be something that, again, I say this now, wasn't as scandalous, but that's us starting to gauge what is scandalous and what's not. And then you go to today, and it feels like none of what's on TV would have been shown 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
No, it's just, we've become desensitized to it.
Yes. Yeah. And we've got to see that. That's got to be exposed to us. And so it's what intrigues me about sexual integrity, because would you say that that's, and you can explain it, is it more of a foundational class that whether you're dealing with some deep, dark thing that needs to come out or just struggling with it? What's a good fit for people who might be interested in this conversation with sexual integrity?
So it's heavily leans towards sexual addiction. Okay, I'll say that up front. However, it really goes in to your approach. If I'm a young couple and I've got 10, 11-year-old boys, and I don't understand. I was never talked to as a child about my sexuality. Here's a way to find out information about the brain, about what God says about it. And it does have a lot of stuff in there, but it also has studies and tests that you can take to see where you're at.
Yeah.
So it can be for everybody. It's an introduction to it. But it can scare some people because there's using the word addiction. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just say from my own experience.
Yep.
The last thing I ever wanted to be labeled as was an addict.
Sure.
It never goes away.
Yeah.
And so I finally came to the realization through understanding what an addict is.
Yeah.
Right. How many times have you tried to stop?
Right.
Every time.
Yeah.
Is it hurting anybody? Look at my family.
Right.
Just answering those questions says that's a clinical understanding of addiction.
Yeah.
Right. And so I had to succumb to that and understand, and then embrace it, and then understand, okay, there is healing from this. But through Sexual Integrity 101, really an informative class, 2 hours. And then there's some homework that you can take home to kind of further research whatever part of that study that you want to look at. So it can be for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. To learn about it. I think the biggest thing is, even in the church today, it doesn't get talked about enough.
Right.
And so it's in the shadows, so to speak, just like isolation is in the shadows.
Yes.
So if it's in the shadows, it's taboo to talk about. And if it's taboo to talk about, if I've got a problem, I don't know who to go to.
Right.
So if we can bring it a little bit more into the mainstream, and with, gloves, white gloves,
sure,
so to speak, to help people learn, it's gonna help those conversations at home with kids and with people that are growing up and learning, what is my sexuality all about?
Sure.
And what does God say about it?
Yeah. So we don't talk about it. You're right. There's no information, or somebody will talk about it. Just we don't like the narrative of what's in our mainstream idea of sexuality. Right. Yeah.
But why hide what God has made?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Well, and that's our nature. I think, we care a lot about our reputation, people in general. And we might admit, I'm a sinner in need of a savior. Okay. Am I honest with myself? What does that mean to be a sinner, to fall short, to be struggling with these things? And it's easier to talk about some topics over others, but you're right. And that's why I really appreciate you having this conversation and being so open and vulnerable about your life, because I know that, and you've seen this, I'm sure, in your experience with it, you can connect with some of the men in particular who are dealing with the same. And that's my prayer, that those men who have that urge, that little desire, that understanding, I'm done with this. I need to share this and lighten this load.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a gift.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, the freedom is a gift. God's grace is abundant for us, but He wants us to admit it also. He wants us to come into the light with it. And then, so you know what Satan wanted to use to destroy us, God will use for His glory. For somebody else.
Yep. And out of the Sexual Integrity 101, that's when, I think you've shared this before, you might see some men out of that rise above to this 7 pillars, or at least start to pique their interest in that.
Yeah, I've had men come to me and say, okay, I got a problem. So we did this at one of my Men of Valor class Friday mornings, and we did it with a group of men. And in that group of men, I did have some people come to me and say, I need the next step.
Yeah.
And so putting that together and getting that all going has taken a long time.
Yeah.
But that type of class, Sexual Integrity 101, helps open the eyes to what's going on. And maybe it's a nudge from the wife. I don't know.
You're right.
It could be anything. However, yes, that's the introductory. And then the 7 pillars is where we get real.
Yeah.
We get very real.
Yeah.
And we dig deep into the things that have beset us and, why we're coping and all those things.
It's a 10-month deal.
10 months.
I'm sure you're connecting in relationships and meaningful conversation. It probably goes beyond 10 months as far as the way you men connect together.
It does. Yeah. I just returned from a Pure Desire summit.
Okay. Yep.
Just this past week. And I got to see 4 different guys from 2 previous groups.
Okay.
And we still chat. We still connect.
Yeah.
Our wives connect. So there's a community there that starts to get built.
Yeah.
And you become brothers.
Yeah.
That have gone through the trenches together.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have a day that you're just struggling, who do you call? You call somebody that you've been through the trenches with. And so that connection helps.
Probably same for the spouse too.
And for the spouse.
That they have that relationship and connection with other spouses who have gone through the trenches of this.
Yeah, through betrayal and beyond. My wife has gone through that, and she has led groups through that. And that also is, there's a lot of hurt and a lot of pain, and how to deal with that. Number one, they try to understand addiction because why is this happening?
Yes.
Because it's not their addiction, but they've been betrayed and they've been hurt by it. And then to try to heal from that and to understand the healing that God has for you. That connects the women just as well. And, actually Pure Desire has 7 pillar type groups for women called Unraveled.
Okay.
Because there are women in our society that have the same issue.
Yep.
So there are a multitude of resources that 7 pillars that Pure Desire has.
Yep.
All the way from the junior high school level, all the way up through 7 pillars.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of marriages saved through this.
Oh my. Yeah. Yeah. Just, through the 3 groups that I've been in, generally 7 guys, a couple times guys will drop out. So, 18, 19 guys, just the stories of healing. And, quite honestly, sometimes it takes more than one 7 pillars group, right? Mm-hmm. They say 3 to 5 years is what they say.
Yep.
Quite honestly.
Yep.
And
of just intentional work effort and being able to, not completely restore, but move in that direction.
Move in the right
healing.
direction.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't get there overnight.
Yeah, right.
It's not gonna.
Yep.
It's not gonna get healed.
That's
overnight.
exposed here. We're good now, right?
No, that's not how that works.
Right. No.
So that I've seen marriages be restored in a lot of cases, and actually meeting the men and the women.
Yeah.
And connecting with them. Not in a posture of, I sure hope nobody sees us.
Sure.
In a posture of God's grace.
Yeah.
And what God has brought them through, and the healing that they have. And no couple's perfect.
Yeah.
Right? We all want to look perfect.
Yep.
Look at Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what social media is for.
Right. But we're not. And so the authentic relationship that can be built between a man and a woman in a relationship really starts to increase their marriage bond. Because if you're in isolation, you're only worried about you.
Right.
You're very selfish. Right. You can't have that in a marriage.
Yeah.
And so breaking that bondage, breaking those things, coming together and understanding what it is, and actually working on your own relationship with God first.
Yep.
Right. And then working on your relationship with your wife or others.
Right.
Is important. You got to get that first.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You've got to get that in tune first. And so through 7 pillars, that's part of what happens. And the same thing with Betrayal and Beyond. But when you get to that horizontal relationship, it's authentic. It's not cloaked in darkness.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a relationship real.
Like we can taste the beauty of a relationship again.
Right.
Instead of the tension and the struggle.
Right.
Well, that's my prayer for men, for couples, and through this. And I know we're going to be hosting at some point a Sexual Integrity 101 and hopefully the 7 pillars and beyond. And so as you say, as Stats will say, so you referenced the Barna study just came out, and we've got that. We'll put a link in the podcast as we post this, but so that they can access this. Any other quick highlights of the Barna study that just came out? I know you're still unpacking it and looking at it.
The interesting thing is taking a look at the different generations.
Yeah.
And the growth, the difference between 10 or 12 years ago and now, just how much the church, people that call themselves Christians that actually attend church,
right,
are different than maybe Christians that go on Easter.
Active in their faith.
Right, active in their faith.
Yep.
And just the numbers there of people that say, I struggle, has grown in 10 years again.
Yeah.
And it's not 30%, it's not 40%, it's not 50%, it's in the 60% range.
Yeah.
And
maybe even more.
Yeah, Yeah, so bring a box of Kleenex when you read it, because it's tough news. But the good part is that there are resources out there, and Pure Desire is not the only one. There are multiple ones.
Yeah.
But Pure Desire happens to be the one I connected with, and seems to be the most, the best for me.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, with a biblically based and clinically informed. Makes a big difference rather than just going at it from a clinical perspective. This is a relationship. This is God-based, and your faith is very important to this process.
Well, Larry, thank you for just sharing all of this, and again, being vulnerable to share your story. I know you've seen it inspire many. We hope to and pray that that people will feel that nudge and that call to get involved with this, and when we're able to offer that. So.
Yeah, definitely. So if people want more information, it's puredesire.org.
Perfect.
Okay. That's the place to go to find more information and to look up the information about the Barna.
We'll get all that posted too. So awesome. Thank you, Larry.
You bet. Thank you.
Thanks for listening today to our Faith, Relationship, and Community podcast. For more episodes, check out our website, morningsidelutheran.com, or on our social media platforms. We appreciate you joining. God bless.